Dutch edition of Jonathan Melville, the second Dutch edition. It's now the 48th language edition of that. And since I saw you last, the Hindi edition and the German edition also. So I'm very pleased you may buy a copy. Okay. Now I'm going to introduce you to our speakers tonight, all of whom had a, well, I'm hoping, grand experience this summer. We had conferences that Lee put on. Actually, she should have been on this panel too here, because she was the one that organized and sponsored the Austrian Economic Summit in Bucharest, Romania, Austrian Economic Summit in Bratislava, Slovakia, and she didn't have anything to do with the Freedom Fest one, except she stood out of the way and let it happen and all that. But she did organize the Austrian Economic Seminars in Shenyang at Northeastern University for a whole week of lectures there. And we hope that, Jim, you'll join that in the future. And also the
English camp.
And the English camp that she started up for the first time in Beijing. But also we had Freedom Fest. We have Danny Santos, president of the Laissez-Faire Society at Hawaii Pacific University, who was at Freedom Fest. We have Jim Marsh, who is a professor of economics and a good economics professor. That's kind of a rare thing, I hate to say. A good economics professor over at the University of Hawaii. And by good, I mean philosophically sound.
Oh yeah,
and a good professor at the University of Hawaii. And he was at Bucharest. No, he was, you were at Bucharest, Bratislava, and at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas this summer. And then we have Mo C, who is currently, doing lots of things, a former president of Laissez-Faire Society. He's working with the Grassroots Institute, used to work with Sam Sloan, used to work here with John Carroll, and he's now doing all kinds of research at Grassroots Institute. He was at both Lausanne, the Libertarian International or Liberty International Conference in Lausanne, Switzerland, and at the Bratislava camp and the conference. And then Nick Gregory, who is the president of Young Americans for Liberty, right?
I'm the state chair.
State chair, okay, and founder of it, and spreading it all throughout the state here. Young Americans for Liberty, a student over at University of Hawaii, and he's been at the conference at the Freedom Fest and at Lausanne. These conferences were a great deal due to the scholarship assistance of the Hope Foundation. They have received some assistance, and the International Society for Individual Liberty, and Lee's special thing called the Foolish Things Events. This is the Foolish Things Salon. I mean, what could be foolisher? Okay, so, well, let's start ladies first. Over here, tell us about
Can I sit?
your experience.
I can stay sitting.
You can do as you wish.
Spectacular. All right, everyone. As he kind of introduced, I'm Danny. I'm actually an intern at Law Offices of John Carroll. Luckily, he let me have time off so I could go over to Freedom Fest. And it was an absolutely amazing experience. But the one thing that I really took away from it was that we need to stay close to our roots. When I first got involved in this whole liberty movement and in freedom and individual liberties, got kind of brought into all of this, I loved how it wasn't like a football team dynamic with Republicans versus Democrats and just fighting. It was a group of people that all were together and believed in the same things. It believed in civil liberties and the freedom for everyone, and no one can tell you what you can and cannot do. And something that I saw at Freedom Fest was that I'm watching the Libertarian Party on a large scale kind of evolve and manipulate into something that it's not. For instance, we were sitting having dinner and we had kind of brought a couple people with us, and there was a woman who was trying to tell me how there's kind of mind tricks that Ken could be using in his lectures at school that will stick things in your head and get people to kind of come to our side. And I'm sitting there like, are you serious? Here we are telling everyone, oh, you can't, the government can't tell you what you can and cannot do, but it's okay. We're going to use mind tricks on you to get you to believe that you should be free. And this just whole turning into a political crap kind of was unsettling for me. And so coming back from Freedom Fest, I am so glad that I got to see the amazing speakers with Isil. Oh my goodness. Mary Ruart gave a presentation about the FDA, and it was spectacular. You can see it online on the Isil website if anyone wants to go on and see. I highly recommend that you do. It's fabulous. And all the speakers that came for Isil was great. But
it's because you videotaped them, or you filmed them.
I did.
Yeah.
I filmed them. Only one day.
Yeah.
But coming back now, it reminds me that the reason that I got involved in this, and I'm sure many of us got involved in all of this, is because of the core beliefs that we have and the core values that we have. And we can't let this huge political activism and wanting to really push everything change how we are and our course. So, yep, that's me.
Great, thank you. Well, Jim. Yeah.
We follow linearly then, okay.
Oh, is that okay? I mean, I sprung this on you. Would you?
Well, he's just telling you, this is not the first time I've ever been drafted. It's more pleasant than the first time, and shorter. Anyway, yeah, I was very happy. I'm happy to talk about summer. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. My voice doesn't always go. Very happy to talk about summer adventures because it turned out to be a highly eventful summer, not just with libertarian projects, but also with some other things I'm associated with and some family matters. I wanted to go. I always like to go to Europe every summer. I do that anyway, but I have a daughter and a granddaughter, 4-year-old granddaughter, living in London. And it's hard to get over there without spending a lot of money out of my weak bank account. So I managed to get the Scheidler College of Business to send me there every summer. Well, not the full expense. But what I have to do in order to go is to go to a conference in Europe. So I went to a conference in Bergen, Norway. That was delightful, wonderful conference, but the city of Bergen was much nicer than the conference. Yeah. Spent a lot of time in the fjords and that sort of thing. From Bergen to Berlin to Bucharest to Budapest to Bratislava, everything starts with B in Europe, apparently. Then finally, I guess I got to go to. We went to one day in Vienna. Yep. That starts with a V rather than a B, if you can distinguish my garbled English. and now, a little bit about these conferences. The two things in Bucharest and Bratislava were pretty similar. We were giving, at least I was giving, pretty much the same talk or set of talks. The students were extremely responsive, which is, I'm sad to say, is more than I can expect in my ordinary classes here in Hawaii. Extremely responsive, or rather there was a subgroup, and this is probably always true, who wanted to talk. But they were interesting people. I talked about environmental, and one talk was on, since I come from Chicago, I'm a Chicago economist, surrounded by all these Viennese types. And so it was a great experience. The Freedom Fest I usually go to, I've been going for the last, 10 years or so. Mark Skousen was an old friend of mine, and in fact, when he came through Hawaii once, it must be 15 years ago or so, he gave a talk at CBA, at the College of Business, and Ken came. And I think it was the first time you had met Mark. So a new friendship developed. It was very fruitful for both of them. But I did two talks, or rather one talk and chaired one session at Freedom Fest. Again on environmental, on sea level rise or something ridiculous like that. And the other was on what was the other talk on? Oh, Paul Krugman. And I decided I was going to give a talk on in defense of Paul Krugman. There was a time when he was earning his awards, when he wrote some really first-rate economic articles. Nobody can read them, and they are so specialized. He is the world's greatest authority on international trade from and to countries that are characterized by monopolistic competition and increasing returns to scale. Now, you can bet he was not asked by the New York Times to write about that. They wanted him to do, left-wing or semi-left-wing articles and so on. And I doubt he's ever mentioned any of those expertise things in any of the articles he ever wrote. But I defended him on the grounds that there was a time when he was quite a good economist. Maybe outgrew it. But that's about the Bratislava and Bucharest must be beautiful cities, but we didn't go to them. We were outside somewhere and we didn't get a chance to see the beauties and the wonders. We actually did a little bit. And of course, we didn't go to Las Vegas to see the beauties of the city. And every time you go outside in Las Vegas, I'm sure some of you know this, you die of heat exhaustion.
So hot.
So, survived all that, and here we are, and I'm very happy to be meeting with all of you, and hope we can have some good conversations as the evening progresses.
Great, thank you. Oh.
Yeah, when Professor Schooling called me and asked me if I want to take economic classes for the summer with him, I almost fell off my chair. This guy must be crazy. I already had a hard time passing the exams the first time around. But then once he's mentioned that there's no test, it would be in a different country, and I was going to get to hear from some really high caliber speakers, which I've heard about.
As opposed to when you're in my class.
he was one of the speakers. He was one of the speakers. As opposed to. So once they explained all that to me, I was very excited to get out there. One of the things I found really interesting was, rather than a typical economic class where it's all theory, it's all books, it's not really too much grounded in the practical sense, which to me I don't find too much value out of. We're meeting a lot of people that were actually having businesses that were free market based. We're meeting a lot of people that had initiatives that were actually advancing the libertarian philosophy. So to me that was kind of a remarkable eye-opening, rather than the traditional just hanging around with friends and kind of complaining about archaic things that I didn't think anyone else would get out of a real-world experience. And then, so for the first event, we went out to Bratislava, in which we met a remarkable guy named Byron Mucha, who has a project where he's helping farmers in India register their land so that they have property ownership. Which, as libertarians, we very often talk about property ownership, but I think in America that gets lost on a lot of people. But in India, they can understand, hey, I want to own my land. If I can make it better, I can make better crops, I can make a better living for myself. So rather than writing academic papers, he went out himself, used this Google technology, got them all signed up, and started helping these people actually have their own property rights. So to me, that was just a remarkable, eye-opening thing to see that the tools for libertarianism and the economic tools that we advocate for are actually being used practically. And in addition to that, one thing we did while we were out in Vienna, we went to the Hayek tour, which to me was just a remarkable, eye-opening moment. Like a lot of you, I've always read about Hayek, but unlike some of you, I wasn't born when he was around, so to me it just kind of seemed like this mythical figure. So to see some of his property when he was a kid, some of the charts that he would draw out, the letters he would write back to his parents, walking by the schools that he walks by, kind of brought the whole thing home to me, made me think, okay, this isn't just some crazy philosophical type club. These people actually did exist, and these people actually did go ahead and make things better in society. Following Austria, we went ahead to Switzerland, where we had the Isil conference. And with that, we had about 20 different speakers. We had a lot of students from Europe, actually, which is a big step up from when we have our meetings in Hawaii, where you get kind of a small group. You have maybe 100 people total at the conference, and you see all the initiatives they're making. They're all going out to different countries. They're starting companies, and they're actually speaking out to the community and getting their message heard across. One interesting person I met out there actually has put together a Jonathan Gullible play to write Nigeria. So then you have these third world countries that are spouting free market ideas. To me, that was just a completely remarkable concept. I know in Hawaii it's easy to kind of think everything's hopeless. You know, if you look around, you say, well, what can I really do? But when you see people making big waves in different countries, it makes me think, well, there's no excuse why we can't be successful here in Hawaii. And throughout the whole trip, throughout the Switzerland trip, we had Nick, who actually reached out to a lot of speakers and tried to form what we're calling the Speakers Bureau. And the idea is to bring all these well-known people to Hawaii, to educate the kids of Hawaii, to get them a little bit more involved in the process, but more importantly, to get away from just the kind of political theology side of things and see that there are actually practical steps libertarians can do that make society better. And to me, that's just a huge win, because whenever I get in debates with my friends, so as well, what are you guys doing? You know, it's like, well, you know, we talked about it. This person wrote a paper, you know, but by the end of the day, they're right. The good things, the tools that the other sides have is that they're very active in the communities, and they say, this is what I'm doing for you. You know, I'm giving you this, I'm giving you that. So to me, it was really refreshing to see a giant group of libertarians very active and doing very practical things to move the ball forward. And for that, I'm very grateful to the school, as they kind of reignited my faith in the movement. I kind of started to lose hope and become a pessimistic 23-year-old and say, well, woe is me, it's all over. But I'm definitely much more energized and excited about it. So coming back here with the Grassroots Institute, the main initiative is how do we export all the ideals we learned while we were in Europe and bring it back to America. And with that, we just got Nick on board, who will be helping us reach out both to the youth groups, to do not just events where you talk to them, lecture to them. Ideally, we hope to launch some sort of internship initiative. We figure the best way to get kids involved is have them interning at places like John Carroll's office, even though he's terrible to deal with, you know. I'm kidding. I'm happy to hear Danny gets days off now, but
half a day on Christmas.
half a day
on Christmas.
But what that does to people, but what that does for kids, I mean, working in his office, actually, I learned a lot, because we're fighting on cases that are actually free market based. You know, we're trying to take down big government things, so that it ignites your thoughts, it moves your development a lot further. And then when you leave John Carroll's office, you go out and you carry those ideals with you. So I think he's been doing a great job of helping kids out in Hawaii not feel like they're just kind of part of some club that talks to each other, but actually getting them involved in the community. Same thing with Senator Sam Sloan. And I think the more we have that, the more businesses that are run by free market individuals that take kids in, let them work for them, let them earn a living. I think the ideas kind of seep through a lot better that way, rather than reading a paper or reading a book, unless it's Jonathan Gullible book. Fantastic book. Highly recommended. There's even an audiobook version of it. So. And with that, I'll pass it off to Nick.
That's exactly my vision for Grassroots Youth, is to start exporting students and importing speakers. So we have a comments card on everybody's chair where if there's a speaker you'd like to see at an event. Working on a Speakers Bureau, and I'd like your advice. It's the big square. You can just write a speaker in, and we'll try to get them on our bureau, and maybe one day they'll be able to speak at a campus.
And I would like to add to that real quick. If there's a speaker that you have special connection to, that you think you can get out to Hawaii, or you think students can really benefit from hearing from, please put that name out there and write that we can contact you to get that person out here. As a nonprofit, there are limited resources, but I think these are definitely worthy investments that we need to make. Yeah.
You know, we were faced with this problem when at Libertarian Party years ago, and I said, well, you know, why don't we look in Hawaii? Because a lot of very famous, well-known people end up here or come through here for free. And I think that year we got Rudy Rummel to come and do our convention. If you know who Rudy Rummel is, right? And he's like world known. And I could tell you probably 3 or 4 people right now who live on Oahu who are experts, world experts in their field who don't need travel expenses, you know.
Definitely, we want to rely on them first, and then being in Hawaii, I think we get a discount on speakers, because I've talked to many organizations and they're gagging at the chance to come out here and talk to student groups. So I think we might as well utilize the fact that we live in a very nice location. They'd rather come talk to UH Manoa than any college in Arkansas any day. And so we can definitely get speakers out here. The idea is to import the speakers and the motivators and export the students, because a big thing about I wasn't born and raised here, but I've been here long enough and talked to enough students to know that a lot of them are dying to get off the island. A lot of them want the real world experience. They feel isolated, especially if you're a libertarian going to a public university. You definitely feel isolated in your own philosophy, in your own thinking. So getting these students out and branching them and connecting them to other groups, like in Switzerland, I learned about so many different groups doing amazing things in Europe, which blew my mind, because when I think about Europe, I think socialist, no libertarian organization exists there. Well, I mean, that's doing much, but there's tons. I learned so much information there. I was equipped with knowledge that Mary Ruwert gave her FDA speech there, and blew my mind with all kinds of numbers of lives could be saved if we didn't have the FDA regulations. Ken gave an amazing talk about organ donation, which wasn't even an issue that I'd thought about before, but hundreds of thousands of lives could be saved if we freed that market up too. So it empowers students with the knowledge to come back and actually prove their case, and it also motivates them. So we want to export students to as many conferences as possible, get them connected, get them the leadership skills that they can come back and actually. We'd love to send students there in
July.
In July.
Next year, yes.
And what the Schoolins do for the youth here is something that's really amazing, and they need some help doing it. I'm sure it's a huge burden every year when they have to organize the events all alone and get students out there all on their own budget. I mean, this is something that some of the work that we want to pick up, and some of the good things that we want to do is to advance on what the Schoolins have been doing. So if there's a speaker you want us to have come out, please put it in the box. If you're willing to help with any youth program, it doesn't have to be a financial donation. It could just be helping with events, helping with ideas. We definitely just want to get everybody in the same network and on the same page, and build some kind of youth movement.
It's pretty cool. When I was in Slovakia, I met with a small think tank run by 3 people called NS. And what I found most remarkable about them is that I think as libertarians, the default is, let's go ahead and our constitution and all that. They had a fantastic marketing campaign to show out really what the price of the state was. So what they did was they put out these three commercials. One of them, it says, "Do you like alcohol? Buy alcohol. Slovakia will be richer." And I was like, what the hell are these guys talking about? Yeah. But then obviously what they were talking about is taxes. So I think what I find interesting with that is that they're using marketing techniques, which is something that I think we haven't been doing too much of. We just kind of say these ideas and think everyone should get it. But I think the average person definitely needs things to be brought down a bit more to that level, easy to understand. If you're a busy person working all day, the last thing you want to do when you get home is read a Cato Institute or Grassroots Institute report. You want to get kind of like a 15-second snapshot of what's going on. So they did that. The other commercial was, do you like dogs? Buy dogs. Slovakia will be richer. So what the hell are these guys talking about? And obviously the idea behind that was, maybe not obviously with that, whenever you buy all these things, the government taxes you. So whenever you buy anything, you're making the state richer. So then people get a little bit outraged and say, well, why the hell am I paying this in taxes? Why am I paying that in taxes? I just want to buy a dog. I just want to buy a beer. What's the problem here? So
and the cigarette too.
And the cigarettes.
beer.
and the cigarettes. So that was just something I found remarkable, especially because it was a group of 3 people, and with them I believe they reached 200,000 people, and that gets to the point where they're routinely testifying in Parliament in Slovakia, and they're actually making really big waves out in Slovakia. So I think if they can be successful there with 3 people running one small institute, I count here at least 15, 20 people. Maybe we can do our own, maybe buy, do you like poo-poos? Well, buy poo-poos, Hawaii would be richer, I don't know. we can work out the details later, but that was definitely one of the major things I learned. That
some ridiculous things. They got so many hits on the YouTube.
And it's fantastic because it was sweet, it was short, it got to the point.
Too, because it doesn't cost them anything.
I want to know if Ken gave you those T-shirts. The ones that says, "I was a victim of Ken School and mind manipulation."
I think I still have to take one more class with him, so I gotta.
It's after you take all of the courses.
Yeah.
All the ones he offers, then you get the shirt.
Then you get the
This one. You own your own life.
Very good.
Ken School and
Lee had all those made for the Shanghai conference. The Shanghai Austrian Economic Summit. But last year, which is now, as she said, is going to be, she's already organizing one for next year. Because say something about that. You had your conferences this summer, last year, and what's coming up next year and why?
Actually, a lot of people from the Shanghai conference last 2 years ago, was it last year?
Last summer.
Yeah. And
summer before last.
just watching them, that life had changed. One student went to Australia, and he totally changed his direction on studying. And now he found Austrian economist. So he switched his school and starting his graduate study with that professor. And 4 people, I helped them got into Madrid, study under Jesus Horta de Soto. Yeah, and Jesus is great. Even though he's too expensive for me to invite him to anywhere for a conference, but he buys a lot of books and contribute to my conferences. And every time I recommend some students to him, he always says, "Sure, why not?" So now 4 Chinese boys from my conference now study under him, and one went study in England, also changed his direction of study. And they were jealous of the Bratislava conference because we tried really, really hard for them to get a visa to go to Europe because they can't apply for Schengen visa, but Bratislava is extremely difficult. So nobody got it at the end to Bratislava, but the 2 people was at my Shanghai conference studying in Madrid went there. Mo, you met them. And so they started a club they call Kunshan. Kunshan is the location I had my conference. They call themselves Kunshan School now, and they meet every week to read books of all sorts of libertarian and free market books, and they invite speakers, and they start translating all the great books, old and new, and also putting a subtitle, Chinese subtitles on those YouTubes. Right now they're doing Dan Mitchell's.
Okay.
Dan Mitchell asked me, Dan Mitchell is with Cato Institute, and he asked me to promote his speech in China. So now this group is putting Chinese subtitles on there, and they just finished Tom Palmer's keynote speech at the Cato University, and it was a very good one. They put the subtitle in there, and so they're very happy that I decided to go back to China. The reason I didn't want to do too much is I have to do it in a very clever way that doesn't cause attention of the government because they don't approve of what I'm doing. Last summer, just this past summer, the police gave me a lot of problem, but I grew up there. I knew how to deal with them, so I outsmart them. They tried every way to threaten me, and then finally they gave up because I'm not that easily intimidated. And so,
I can affirm that.
yeah, and what's the eventful summer this year?
Maybe you're the victim of mind control.
Yeah.
So I'm determined to do it. And in Hong Kong, the Lion Rock Institute, some of you might know, very great think tank in Hong Kong. They jump on being my partner. They have a lot of interns. So they are going to raise scholarship. For last time I paid a lot of, actually Isil paid 3 interns to China, to Shanghai for the scholarship. And this time they're going to raise money by themselves, and then they will be the volunteer to run the conference because I don't hire event management company because we're low budget, but we get very top-notch speakers. And in Shanghai, I had 23 countries represented at my conference, 170 people. That was great. Yeah, and so I hope you will come. You will come and speak and attend. And like you said, I need help. Filming it. Actually, afterwards, putting all the things together to put on the internet. It's a challenge and a lot of work. They're all done by volunteers. And we have most of the things online now. And we're gradually putting the speeches from Bratislava and Romania online now. Somehow, when the length is exceeded the YouTube whatever, it's very hard. But we're doing it. And so people who couldn't go can listen to it. And I also I need financial support. When I did in China, some people gave me $25, $10, $50, $200, whatever amount. It goes a long way in China. Yeah. So maybe you keep that on your list.
Check to see if there are some questions that people have about from.
I just want to add one more thing. Yeah, and these conferences were definitely some of the more worthwhile things I've ever done, because I've gone to a lot of events before that kind of libertarian theme, and I've read a good amount of books. But this was like an Austrian economic boot camp in 1 week. You get hit by every side. You get hit by the academics, the nonprofit think tanks, so you get the practical business people. So immediately you see every aspect in which the philosophy can be played out, not just in the classroom, but in practical real life. So I think if we're trying to motivate more kids to become libertarian, or kind of raise the next generation of libertarians or free marketeers, these types of camps are just, they're perfect, because you don't get it in the university. I was fortunate enough that I had Ken Schooling as a professor, but that's the only professor I really had that has nurtured these thoughts that I had. And thank you again for bringing me out and introducing me to more people that kind of help reaffirm what I already believed in. So, thanks.
Yeah, Ken just does so much. I was an elementary education major and just took Ken's class as one of my requirements for Gen Ed, and it just completely changes your life. And for us to have such an amazing speaker and such an amazing person going out to all these countries, everything that we can do to help them is just helping us.
Mind control.
Mind control.
Yeah, even me, I learned a lot by listening to Jim's lecture. Now, every time I think about Renaissance, I cannot, thinking, well, the temperature was higher at the time of global warming that pushed the Renaissance, Even this morning I was talking about that. Yeah, it just, and we learned so much, not from the textbook or from schools. Yeah.
Lee, you mentioned somebody else?
No, go ahead.
You mentioned Mitchell, Dan Mitchell. I don't know, probably most people know, but he has a blog. It appears, I think, daily, sponsored by Cato. Really quite excellent. I almost always click on it and read something out of it. I can't possibly read all of it, But it's really, and he's very good at current issues and current problems. It's a very worthwhile blog.
Yeah, last month, Costco has this magazine for free for all Costco members. Mm-hmm. And there's Dan Mitchell's article in there because they do surveys on offshore banking. And so there's yes and no. I usually take a look at it, the issue, and if I read it, then I look at it, oh, Dan's article is in there. It's really great. Very, limited space, but he explained it very well. So I email him, I say, thank you. He said, oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
He talked at the Isil conference in Switzerland too, and I think all that's on the Isil website. So,
Yeah, Ken Lee is the manager of the ISO website.
and the most, the biggest surprise there, and I guess everybody was really happy to see speak, was Shin Dong-hook was the first known escapee from the political prison camps in North Korea, and he talked with his translator, translated his speech, but told about his accounts and growing up in the prison camp and escaping. And he has a book called Escape from Camp 14. So that was
Where's your book?
really amazing talk.
You should comment on your on the donations for Yale. Is it? Are you both talking? You're talking about Grassroot Institute. You're talking
We're
about
both talking.
So he works at Grassroot Institute as well now. So one of the things we want to do next year is send more students to these types of programs, because I think they do have a huge impact. So please make donations. I mean, it's a 501c3, so your donations are tax deductible. And I think the more students we send that are going to come back to Hawaii, the better the landscape can start look here politically.
and make sure you write down that the money is for the student
youth fund.
program and not Dick Rowland's beer budget.
We got to shut that one down. That's it.
It should be tax deductible.
So on the fundraising front, you guys thought about crowdfunding for any of the specific events?
No, actually, we have not done any crowdfunding yet, but what we do is we just kind of set up like Eventbrite, the Eventbrite events, so people can go ahead and register and pay for these events, but we haven't done it for the fundraising yet. But that will be something we'll be
Because for
looking
a
into.
specific conference, you could set up a Kickstart probably 6 months in advance and try to hit that goal.
Yeah,
And
and
that could maybe be good for bringing more high caliber speakers in as well.
and we're definitely very fortunate that we were able to get a decent amount of people to donate towards these events in the past year. But I think the more we can raise, the more students we can have, and the more impact we can have.
This is Shin Dong-hyuk's book, and he's also on what did we watch in Laissez-Faire Society? Was it? There's
It was the film about North Korea. He was in it. What was the name of that one?
I forgot the name of the film. I don't know.
The North Korea film.
Yeah. There's one where they sneak in some camera people with a dentist crew, and he talks in that about his escape as well. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, but it was really awesome experience.
60 minutes too.
60 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
Because knowing, like, trying to put myself in his shoes, you can't. And growing up in a political prison, not knowing any outside world, his life is completely two spectrums.
It's kind of like Hawaii public education.
Yeah. Once you get out, and you realize there's a whole world beyond public education. I haven't read this yet, but if you don't mind, if I borrow this.
As soon as I finish it.
All right.
I definitely
Ken will loan you the original Korean language edition.
Oh yeah.
fantastic. The cool thing about hearing him speak as well was, again, it gets you out of kind of like the theory thing, like if this happens, that happens, and you could lose your freedom and end up in a camp. Well, here's someone not talking about in theory what could happen. He's telling about his real life experiences, so it kind of even brings that perspective more to the whole libertarian / free market movement, and that, well, these are the things we're fighting for, so that people like him are not trying to stay in camps. So to me, that was definitely a powerful message that was sent across, and it was remarkable.
A lot of the times at the conferences, I had that moment where you're either listening to somebody speak or reading something, and you think to yourself, this person is saying exactly what I thought at some point, or putting in better words than I can. And that's a really powerful experience for anybody, especially if you're a student that's never been exposed to any libertarian thought. As soon as your first book that you read that inspires that thought that I've had these same feelings, I've had these same thoughts, that that's Ken Schoolin's book. It's done that for many students and done it for many students in his classroom. So we want to replicate that, because if there's a youth movement and there's people getting involved and other students see that, I think it will be like a snowball effect. Maybe not as quick, but
At least a snowflake.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So what are your plans now, since you went to those conferences and you are back here, and are you teaching the same thing to your fellow students, or are you going around the neighborhood, are you encouraging people in, like, I have a district meetings every month, so I can invite, I would definitely, I'm encouraging myself, young people, to be involved in politics, because if we don't take it in our own hands, we will just
Oh, definitely.
that human resource.
Yeah, we're starting some kind of like a Ponzi scheme. Now that
Whoa. We're not starting a Ponzi scheme.
it's Mo's idea. But
It's like
now that we
active Bratislava.
now that we've experienced the conferences, we're gonna send students, and then they're gonna send more students, and then hopefully it'll.
But students which are living here already, I mean, they
Yeah.
might live here in this district.
I tell everyone.
Would probably, if you let them go, I mean, I can invite you to my meetings, I mean, you can have them as a participation. So you are spreading the word as we speak, even among older people, because they want to hear that, the young generation is also awake and, trying to do something about it. There's a lot of frustration everywhere.
Yeah.
Actually, go ahead.
When I'm in the grocery store and I see people looking at the prices, I say, oh my gosh, those prices, aren't they so high? Yeah, it's all because of the Jones Act. And then they're like, wait, what's the Jones Act? What is that? And it's just that little thing, just, talking to strangers. People, today you're standing in an elevator and people are just dead silent. It's that awkward, like, looking at each other. It's just reaching out to anyone that you see, everyone, just
Danny,
that one word.
Tell them what you're doing about the Jones Act right now. That's a very exciting story.
Well, currently, so I'm at John Carroll's office. That's actually how I got brought into John's office. Is I was looking for a topic for a paper, and Ken was, Ken, what am I gonna do? And he said, oh, well, the Jones Act. Here, go over John Carroll. He'll help you out, give you a good, citation, something for your paper. And I realized the whole scope of what was going on, and I was like enraged that this was actually happening here. And I was just so lucky to walk into a lawsuit against the United States government to try to get rid of this awful plague on the shipping. And so we've gone through the whole process. Unfortunately, we got dismissed. Who would have guessed that, Matson people and the Shippers Council would be trying to keep this, but we're getting the word out. We are in an appeal right now, so we're still waiting to hear a final judgment, but we've got to keep it. Just because this one lawsuit is finished, we have to make sure that people realize. It's unbelievable to me how many people don't know what the Jones Act is, don't understand that you are paying 3 times more for your shipping just because Matson, who's spilling molasses into the ocean and killing all kinds of fish, can make a higher profit. So, keeping everything. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just
Tag.
We were dismissed at the trial court level.
Yeah.
We have appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals who asked us if we wanted to go into mediation. We had the mediation conference with the U.S. Attorney last week, and the U.S. Attorney adamantly refused to be involved in anything to do with mediation. And I said, look, there's major constitutional issues here, and interestingly enough, the mediation person is a litigation lawyer and part of the Ninth Circuit staff. And she said, oh, I just love your passion about this. And so, long story short, the U.S. government will not touch mediation because they don't want to get into it. But they dismissed us not on constitutional issues, but on the issue that we do not have so-called prudential standing. And on the one hand, they're saying we didn't have specific enough complaints. And we've got one guy that's complained of losing a 51-member business because the employee business, because his rates went from, I think it was $44,000 a container, and over a 2-year period they went to $11,500. They had to relocate the whole business. They said that's not specific enough. The other thing is they said that our class is too wide that everybody, too many people are included in the class, so therefore they can't be permanent. Those are total, to use the term we use in the Army, silly.
That's very PG.
But you liked her advertising campaign though. Like plague.
Yeah, well anyway, so we're waiting right now we're going to file an opening brief, and even the U.S. Attorney admitted over the phone to me when I tried to talk to her and say, why can't you guys do this? She said, oh, we have our client who's the one who runs all the Jones Act restrictions oversight for the whole USA, and so they will not even talk about mediation, but the constitutional issues are there. Could I just say one more?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm dominating that, but anyway, the law is, the Commerce Clause says that every state, regardless, it doesn't say regardless of its location, but it's implied from case law that regardless of the location of the state or its ports, every state is supposed to have equal access to interstate commerce with the states, with the nations, states, and Indian tribes. Now you couldn't have a more clear-cut violation of that Commerce Clause provision than having the BS operation we have here, where 95% of all the major shipping in the world is cut off from here. So anyway, I'm sorry to take up so much time, but I'm giving a speech next week, and I cut into Kelly, Christina, and Hanson. I just heard about it, and I called up, and so they invited me to be the cleanup speaker. Kelly is very good. Hanson is strictly for the ship. But anyway, I would pass on your name.
Yeah. To answer your question, there, to answer your question, there's basically there's three initiatives that we're taking at Grassroots Institute now that resulted from our trip in Austria and in Slovakia. The first one is that we're going to use better marketing techniques as we go up against our big policy issues. Like, yes, we're going to still have attorneys and researchers working on these things. We also need to realize that you need a good and clean-cut marketing message that you can get to the average person in 15 seconds and bring down to the point what your issue actually is. So right now we're currently underwriting a plan for both the Jones Act and the Akaka bill, which should be rolling out within the next 2 months. The second thing we're doing is that we're pushing out a big youth initiative. So that's actually why we have Nick on board now. We're kind of launching this kind of the informal name, like the Grassroots 30 under 30. And the idea is you need to collect all these students and bring them together and mobilize them towards action, rather than the traditional passing to the pamphlets. We need to actually have one big group that has a united voice. It doesn't have to be necessarily united, but you need to have one big group that can work together and actually make policy changes. To the point that something going wrong at the state capitol, you can have students show up there and represent it. The third is basically what I learned was that having students actively involved in either internships or in businesses is a huge way to move these policies forward. So we're trying to reach out to more businesses to hire interns that are students. Businesses that are free market leaning, of course. And I think with that, you get the diffusion of ideas from it. So more people like John Carroll that will step up and take kids from Hawaii Pacific University or University of Hawaii and have them involved in meaningful projects like fighting the Jones Act. The more that we can do, I think the brighter the future looks. But of course, it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of money. And it's the part where I ask you for money. Please go to grassrootsinstitute.org, donate to us, and more importantly, if you have your time that you can donate to us, we'll take that as well. And if you have ways of reaching out to kids, if you have a good program, we can blast out to our members, get people involved. But we definitely need people's energy, people's time, and we do need money because, of course, these things cost a lot to fund, but I think they're worthwhile causes nonetheless. Thanks.
HECO, yeah. John, if you want to just kind of give a brief about what we're doing for HECO. For HECO? HELCO?
HELCO.
I don't want to get into that tonight, but next week we're going to straighten the state out. It's essentially, it's not a suit against HELCO, but Linda Lingle made a very, very big mistake as governor.
She ran?
By signing an agreement with, through the legislature, they ended up in an agreement in 2008, which effectively turned over the generation and the purchase of electricity to HECO. And just one quick example, they're trying to do a photovoltaic, not photovoltaic, but a geothermal hookup, and guess who gets to design the requirement? HECO, the major corporation that umbrellas those four companies. So anyway, they have a 600-something page requirement the same type of a hookup in New Mexico, they have a 22-page requirement to fulfill. And this thing is purely an obstructive thing designed to keep everybody out of this electric market, keep everybody's hands off of it. So essentially, I don't want to give too much away, but essentially we're going against the state on a breach of constructive trust. And if anybody likes Abercrombie, you won't like me because he's our number one defender. That's the summary, but there's a whole slew of things in there, and I'm sure it'll get, I'll get it out to Matt if you want to see it. But I've said it to several
They make nice
Lee?
chairs.
Do you have an announcement about dessert?
Yeah, dessert is served.
Okay, so
That's it.
take a break at this time and mix and talk with these people, but give them a big applause for their
Could I ask Tracy about what's the status of the Rogers trial or date?
Oh yeah, October 8th. I talked to Cher Christie today. Roger's trial is scheduled for October 8th.
For some people who don't know who Roger Christie is, just say that.
Roger Christie is the Hilo individual who is in charge of what they call the THC ministry, and they promote the idea that marijuana is a religious sacrament, and they've been doing this openly right in the main street of Hilo for about 15 or 16 years, and he's now been charged with distributing marijuana. He's been held in the federal detention center by the airport since May or June of 2010 without bail, without a trial. The court ruled he is a danger to the community, so he cannot get bail. And in the federal system, according to the motion and the ruling by the judge, you are a danger to community if you can't prove you won't commit another federal crime. So the burden was on Roger to show he wouldn't commit another crime. If he can't prove it, he's a danger. Ipso facto, it's circular reasoning. So no bail, over 3 years without a trial, and the prosecution entered a motion asking that the court deny him his right to defend himself, which the court ruled in the prosecution's favor. So he will not be allowed to raise his religious defense, his constitutional defense. The only thing he can say is, did he have a marijuana or not, based on the prosecution's evidence. He cannot claim as a minister, he can't make any defense whatsoever on constitutional grounds. That's the court's ruling. The court ruled afterwards that he couldn't. They said they were going to consider it. They said he seemed sincere about his religious beliefs, but that's not an acceptable defense in the federal court. So apparently, the federal government gets to decide whether or not you can defend yourself on constitutional grounds. You don't get to rise a defense. You can go to prison for 20 years. They're offering him plea deal, which would give him another 30 months in jail, in addition to time served. And I told Cher, I said, if they just gave him the plea deal that said time served and let me out tomorrow, maybe they should take it, considering how they've treated him. We've tried everything. I've written to Brian Schatz. Brian Schatz, his office wrote back a very immature letter. I tried getting a hold of Colleen Hanabusa without success. We've put ads in the newspaper in several counties. We've had rallies, but it's looking very bad. And his trial is October 8th. The last thing we're going to try to do is perhaps get as many people as we can down to walk around the street in front of the Federal City building and hand out fully informed jury handouts, so that when the jury goes in there and the court asks if you know anything about the case, they're going to say, yes, we do, and we don't like it. And they're going to have a whole bunch of trouble. And that's about the only thing we can do, is make trouble for them.
Tracy, how come they haven't used the Speedy Trial Act? I mean, they're required to try within so many months. So
well, they keep adding things into the prosecution keeps filing motions, and the defense has to have time to respond to the motion. So the prosecution is saying, well, look, the defense keeps asking for more time. That's not why we're not letting mail. Well, yeah, you just filed a motion saying I can't defend myself on religious grounds, which is the whole reason I'm here. And now I have to bring in expert witnesses and stuff. So they're trying to blame the defense for all the delays. But really, It comes down to, in my opinion, in the opinion of a lot of observers, it's just plain malice. People who know Roger Christie knows that he has been an activist on the Big Island for reform of marijuana laws for years. He was largely responsible for the vote in 2008 where the county voted to tell the police to make marijuana enforcement their lowest priority so they could not spend any time or money investigating. He's largely responsible for getting the county to refuse the green harvest money. So all the federal people with the helicopters had to stop because the county told them no. So they just want to get him. And that's what this trial is all about.
But they're not having the trial. That's why I don't know how come they don't.
They're having it October 8th.
What about jury
Is that a
nullification?
hearing or a trial?
It's a trial.
What?
A trial where he can't defend himself. So I'm not optimistic about it.
Tracy, is the ACLU involved?
Yeah, well,
They've done very little.
But you don't know who the jury is.
They've done very
Giving
little.
out information to them before they get.
Dessert.
You said you're giving
That's
out
not one of the- that's
information
not one of
about
the
the
amendments
case
they believe
to
in.
the jurors, right?
Well, to people walking in and out of the building, you know, they may be jurors, but these jurors will be walking.
Why don't you include something on
I know
jury
you do favors.
nullification?
We have cards from the jury nullification people. I have about 500 or 600 of them. Probably not enough.
That's probably
Can you prove that you're not going to
Well,
commit?
the jury won't know to nullify anything because they won't hear anything. That's the problem.
I don't think anybody here
So
would
it's
prove.
tough.
Yeah, well,
No, I don't think that the president
we
can
all
do
have that. It's
The president is going to.
Yeah.
He's probably at this very moment signing
Well, actually, I
something
got
with
the
his
picture.